Hello, this is the processing recipe for Space Groove Blitz and Crank. First off, let's take a listen to what the processing sounds like and then what the voices sound like raw.
Look, an enemy!
Do not resist.
I can help!
Out of sync.
So now we'll take a listen to them dry.
Look, an enemy! Do not resist. I can help. Out of sync.
So these two tracks are the Blitz and Crank audio files. They have some compression and limiting on them to squeeze out all of the dynamics that I can. I did not want these voices to have a whole lot of dynamics in them because of the robotic processing. It just typically, for the sound I was going for, sounds better when it doesn't have the dynamics of a human because it's not a human. Blitz crank here, crank here. So Blitz is routed to this Blitz layer 1 and this Blitz layer 2. And these two tracks crash down into this Blitz mix bus. Crank is routed to Crank layer 1. And Crank layer 1 crashes down into this mix bus. Probably didn't need two tracks, but for ease of organization, there are still two tracks here. The Crank bus and the Blitz bus are both sending to this Altiverb channel. And then they have a sidechain sent to the verb bus here where sidechain compression is occurring. Once again, this could have been one track, but at one point there were multiple reverbs in here and I just never crashed it down to a single track. And then finally, they hit the 2 bus where the final mastering happens. All right, so let's take a look at Blitz's processing first. So I'm going to mute the verb and we'll just be taking a look at this track 1.
Look, an enemy!
I need to also disable the master effects here.
Look, an enemy!
So on this track, I've basically replicated my closest version of what Manipulator sounds like. I really like the sounds and the tone that I can get from the plugin Manipulator, but when batch processing hundreds of files, it tends to have some variance in the pitch following, or the pitch tracking rather, and I kept having 2 to 4 files out of every, I don't know, couple hundred audio files be glitchy at certain parts, and so I recreated it the best I could, or at least what I liked from it, in a couple of different plugins. So the first one is we're applying some frequency modulation. So dry.
Look, an enemy!
Wet.
Look, an enemy! I can help!
Next, I'm using pitch delay.
Look, an enemy! I can help!
To pitch up 1 step, and it because of how the time and depth works, it's got some additional wobbliness going on to it. With Nectar, we've got pitch correction, but instead of actually working as an auto tune, I'm simply shifting the formant up by 1 step. So dry.
Look, an enemy!
Wet.
Look, an enemy!
And then applying frequency shifter to continue to complete the chain of recreating my Manipulator preset.
Look, an enemy! I can help! Here is pain!
The second layer we've got going on sounds like this altogether.
Here is pain!
Trying to add in just a little bit additional flavor. Now, if I'm truthful about this, I probably didn't need layer 2, but it was one of the multiple layers I was working on, and I just couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. So this extra metallic sound doesn't really cut through the mix too much. Maybe it adds something, maybe it doesn't. So the first step is pitching up with pitch delay. If we compare it to the other pitch delay, we can see it is exactly the same settings. So in theory, this pitch delay plugin actually can't be on the stem track because on layer 1, it is coming in after the frequency modulation, and on layer 2, it is coming in right at the start.
Look, an enemy.
Here is some really fast phasing
Look, an enemy.
and delay for the metallic effect with 9 milliseconds of delay and actually a decent amount of feedback.
Look, an enemy.
Now playing these two layers together.
Look, an enemy. I can help. Here is pain.
If we remove layer 2
Here is pain.
with it on,
Here is pain.
so I can hear a difference for sure, but I don't know if it's the biggest difference in the world. Lastly, this is crashing into the Blitz bus. Morphoder is where the majority of the Space Groove sound is coming in.
Here is pain. Look, an enemy.
And besides just working as Morphoder, I also have an LFO tied to the tune, because without the tune having a slight pitch variation, it sounded too static and too musical.
Look, an enemy.
Next, I have choral,
Look, an enemy.
and then these are just clean up with compression and de-essing and EQ and such. Lastly, it is sent to this Altiverb IR. So let's hear it without and then with.
Look, an enemy. Look, an enemy. I can help. Here is pain.
Gives the sort of like speakerphone all around you style effect. And then on the master bus, we've just got some compression and final mastering.
Look, an enemy. Look, an enemy.
And I cannot actually remember if this echo is in the final. I believe it is not, and only the reverb is the spatialization. All right, jumping over to Crank. Let's hear him dry again.
Do not resist. Do not resist. Out of sync. Annihilate.
Also pretty squashed in the dynamics department. Similarly, he has the frequency modulation,
Do not resist. Out of sync.
but his is quite a bit more noticeable. And then the rest of his processing is on this Crank bus.
Do not resist. Do not resist.
And then pitch delay, similar settings, but pitching down instead of pitching up.
Do not resist.
Decapitator,
Do not resist. Out of sync.
because you're just obligated to add that to all chains.
Out of sync. Annihilation initiated.
I really like what this choral is doing here.
Do not resist. Do not resist.
I love that tonality. Then Morphoder,
Do not resist. Out of sync.
same stuff is happening. I believe it is a different chord being held down. Yeah, different chords. So this is the Blitz chord, and this is the Crank chord. I was just messing around to see what fit well with each voice and also what fit well with the music, because the sound effects of the Space Groove skins have a whole lot of music in them, and I wanted to make sure that the same scale and stuff was respected. Oh, thank you. Next, we've got just some de-essing and EQ cleanup and compression.
Do not resist.
Awesome.
Do not resist. Out of sync.
So now let's hear the before and after with verb real quick.
Do not resist.
And with.
Do not resist.
So yeah, that is the processing of both Blitz and Crank.
Look, an enemy.
Do not resist.
I can